So hey guys, let's begin to new series. The series name is What If Naruto Became Immortal in Rwby. So let's start the series. An unlucky bird stumbled into a bar. If there was ever a worse pun, Crow hadn't heard it. Rain pattered across a tin roof overhead, producing an awful racket as he pushed the door aside. Place was a dump, no two ways about it. All cream walls and worn brown floors, a dirty green chalkboard for writing menu items, with a tiny kitchen nestled behind a cracked wooden counter. Ladles clanked softly against a strainer hung on a ruined wall, just the kind he'd used to make pasta. A small stove simmered silently beneath it, cooking a pot of something. He sniffed once and wrinkled his nose. Didn't much smell appetizing, really. Calling it a dump was generous. This place was more a dive than anything else. Last place you'd expect to find a hero. A balding man awaited him behind the counter, idly fiddling with a knife and a piece of wood. He didn't look up as he crept closer. Nope, grimy bastard wholly focused on his task. A worn blade scratched endlessly against the carving to draw artistry forth from the wood, producing an endless scritch sound that threatened to drive the huntsman bad. Not like had any customers to complain. There was only one patron slouched down in the corner. Poor bastard was out cold, one arm loosely cradling 2 flagons of ale to his chest. Regular or the special? The barkeep asked. I'm actually looking for someone. Crow slid a worn photograph across the countertop. Goes by the name Shiro these days. You ever heard of him? Heard he's a regular around here. The barkeep didn't look up. He kept scratching at the wood. Who's a skin? Hey, I'm not some cop, if that's what you mean. His pride bridled a bit at the man's sullen snort. I need him for a gig. We go way back. Way back, huh? His gaze finally rose, beady eyes intent upon him. So he's a friend of ours. Yeah, I'd say so. Crow scratched his chin and hid his wince. He's a pretty alright guy. Bit of a drinker these days. Still he's good in a fight. You seen him? Didn't think he had friends. That one gaze flicked up and down over him. Doesn't seem the sort. Well, he knows me, pal. A beat of silence pushed its way between them, and the huntsman immediately cursed himself for the slip. Friends? Not anymore, not after Summer's death. But if there was one person in Mistral who could help, one sorry soul capable of sorting out this mess, one man who could wrest the Spring Maiden from Raven's tribe, it was this guy. Bastard couldn't die. Nope, at length. The barkeep smacked his lips. Sorry, ain't seen him in a week. Stop bullying the birdie, Samson. A rough voice drawled from the corner. He's a skin for me. Red eyes snapped to the man in shadows. Because that drunken bastard wasn't sleeping. Not anymore. He looked wide awake, though his hunched posture suggested he'd seen better days. Bleary blue eyes beamed back at him, framed by whiskered cheeks and a shaggy mop of blonde hair so pale it had nearly gone white. A tipsy smile greeted him. Even as he looked on, the stranger raised his flagon and waved it like a war banner. Crow Branwyn. The man held his cup high in salute, uncaring as it sloshed to and fro. As I live and breathe, you look like shit. Yeah, that was him. Cheeky little prick still had a mouth on him. Shiro? Really, Naruto? He snorted as he slid into the chair opposite him. You couldn't think of a better alias? The man grinned and ran a hand through his hair. Matches the hair, doesn't it? It really does. When he'd first met the blonde, he had been just that, blonde. Time and something altogether worse had turned those spiky locks white as ash, not quite schnee white, but an altogether sharper shade. It wasn't from age. After all, they both knew the reason, just as he knew the reason the young man before him was soused. After all, what better way to keep a demon contained than to make sure she was drunk off her ass? Seemed like an effective remedy. Some men drank to forget the past, some men drank to drown their sorrows, and some men drank to keep the world from ending. Naruto was of the latter. Did Leonardo send you? Nah, he waved him down. Came here by myself. Leo. Naruto glowered into his aura. Fuck him. Still don't trust the bastard. Crow wrinkled his nose, noticing just how foggy those blue eyes truly were. Just how drunk are you? Very drunk, Crow. Naruto looked up and steadied himself with one arm, swaying in his seat like a sailor at last call. Comes with the territory. A light leer touched those whiskered cheeks. Or would you rather I let her out to play? A wink followed. She's a bit silly when she's drunk, you know. You'd like her. Kagaya? Not a chance. Bitch was worse than Salem. No, that's fine. He spoke quickly before the blonde could make good on his threat. Look, I need you for a gig. Silence was all he received, and so he took it for acceptance. Or maybe he mistook it. Naruto was hard to read these days. It's big. Leaning across the table, he lowered his voice. I heard you were in Astral these days. And well, the word threatened to choke him, but he willed himself on. We need your help. That's so? His host hiccuped and took another drink. Must be a real rough job if you came all the way out here. Kinda had to, considering what happened with Beacon. Naruto took another drink, this one deeper than the last. What about Beacon? Now it was Crow's turn to flinch. You don't know? The blonde cocked his head. No what? You, might want another drink. Naruto raised an arm and the barkeep came by with 2 flagons, one for each of them. Both were long dry by the time Crow surmised his terrible tale. It was not a pleasant story. By the end of it, Naruto's face had gone the same shade as his hair. Shit, he turned and spat. Shit, Beacon fell? I didn't know. Glassy eyes regarded the mug in his hand. A peal of bitter laughter tumbled out of him. I've been on a bender for years, and I didn't even think to look. Great, he had his sympathy. Now was the time to push. Oz wanted to ask you. Already up and about is he now? His laughter became a snarl. And what does Mr. High and Mighty want with me? The flagon creaked under his suddenly pale fingers. Last I saw him I told him to take that stick and shove it up his ass. Desperate to prevent a rant, Crow said the first thing that came to his mind. It's about Spring. Naruto perked up, eyes alight. You know where the Spring Maiden is? Shit on a stick. He hadn't meant to let that bit slip. Oz would have his hide for spilling the beans like that. Meh, what was the old saying again? In for a penny, in for a pound? Wasn't much point in lying to him now. Cheeky bastard would know it if he tried to. Broken bastard that he was. Negative emotion sensing was absolute bullshit. Yeah, about that. Naruto's head slammed into table. When he finally spoke, his words were muffled against the wood. Raven has her, doesn't she? Possibly. He hedged the word with great reluctance. Wait, you didn't think to ask the last time you? His head snapped up. I didn't want to go anywhere near her after our last spat. Crow's tongue turned to lead in his mouth. Don't tell me you two actually. No, Naruto turned up his nose. I still have standards. Thank the brothers. You do realize, his old friend continued slowly, once I get involved in this again, I won't be able to stop. He straightened a bit in his seat, looking less a drunk and more the man he'd once been. I already swore this life off once for Summer's sake. A spark snarled through his eyes, ancient and unknowable. If I step back in, I'm not going to stop until I finish what she started. No holds barred. He leaned forward, causing the table to creak under the weight of his grip. Do you understand? Crow frowned. Sure, I get it. The mug shattered in Naruto's hand, cutting him short. I don't think you do. The whiskered warrior cocked his head to one side, rather reminding Crow of a starving fox regarding a wary bird. If your sister decides to be a bitch about things again, I'm going to kick her ass to Kingdom Come. He snapped his fingers like a pair of matchsticks. If that Spring Maiden of hers puts up a fight? His hand crashed down on the table. I'll beat her into the ground. Now that hand clenched into a claw, tearing deep divots into the worn wooden frame. If we run into these agents you're so concerned about, I'll kill them. Despite his best efforts to maintain his composure, the unlucky huntsman found himself aghast. You know, I'd forgotten how intense you got when someone pissed you off. Blue eyes flashed white. You have no idea. We doing this or not? Really coulda used your help with this guy, Summer. By rights, he should refuse him and take his words back. Naruto had always been a loose cannon at the best of times, but now, it was like unleashing one demon to kill another. Cinderfall was a bad bitch. Make no mistake, Raven wasn't much better, but that thing Naruto was drowning deep inside himself. That abomination he kept locked away in the depths of his soul. Well, Crow feared no man nor beast, but that thing? That scared him. More than Cinder, more than Raven, hells, more than Salem herself. Sometimes you needed a monster to fight monsters. Men dreaded them, ran from them. If had a lick of sense, he'd be doing the same right now. And yet, he swallowed one to master himself. Just don't lose your head out there, alright? Naruto thumped his mug on the table. There are things worse than death, Crow. There really were. Alright, he offered him a hand. Glad to have ya. Blue eyes flicked down to his hand. Naruto didn't move. For a moment he wondered if the blonde was having him on. But no, his gaze was all too sharp despite his drunken state. Also, I want one of the questions. You know about the lamp too? Crow perked up. Why? My business. A hand sliced through the air to silence him. Not yours, what'll it be? He grimaced all the same. Is it about? No, Naruto smiled. And this time it felt genuine. Kagaya and I have come to an agreement for now. I keep her drunk off her arse, let her smite whoever pisses her off, and in return she doesn't destroy your world. Oops, he frowned suddenly, a light burning in his eyes. Speaking of which, he snatched a stray bottle from the passing barkeep, tipped back to his lips and polished it off. Much better. A rough hand slammed it down as he guffawed, was starting to get sober for a second there. Crow sighed. Fine. Crow offered his hand one last time. Just try not to scare the kids too much. Meh. Naruto hiccuped and waved a palm, already tipsy from his hasty drink. I make no promises. Crow forebore the urge to roll his eyes. A bird with bad luck enlisting the aid of a cursed fox. Sounded like something straight out of a storybook. Still, he didn't have much choice in the matter. If he wanted this to work, and make no mistake, they needed this to work, he'd have to play ball. Like it or not, they were stuck with each other for the time being, and so he reached the rest of the way across to grasp his hand. Clawed fingers bit into his painfully, and he fought down a grimace. It was a dark day indeed when a drunk went and hired yet another drunk to beat up their deadbeat sister. Bah, he'd done stranger things. On a whim, Crow snatched the bottle and knocked it back. Bottoms up. I have a maiden. Oh, that's cute. Crow stepped aside. We have this guy. Say hello, Whiskers. Naruto smiled. Hello? Raven choked. Why is that thing here in my camp? Thing, am I? A blonde brow quirked. Raven, I'm hurt. I thought we were friends. With you, maybe. Not that monster inside of you. She drew her blade in a flourish of red steel. Get out. I've stared death in the face over and over again. She stalked down the steps, her face hidden behind her mask, but anger in her voice all the same. And every time I've spat in that face and survived because I'm strong enough to do what others won't. And I will not stand by while you. An uppercut cracked into Raven's chin, launching her back into the tent. Vernal whistled. Hot damn, she wanted that. There really was nothing quite like a good drink in the morning. Or was it evening? Semantics. It was 5 o'clock somewhere, and that was as good a reason for an immortal to knock one back. Sprawled upon his new sofa, Naruto tipped the bottle to his lips and took another deep draught for himself. Alcohol burned the back of his throat as it warmed his belly. Good old Elysian vodka. Still packed a punch, but it wasn't enough. A familiar ache in his temples told him he was well on his way to sobering up again. Seemed Kagaya was being particularly picky today. That wouldn't do. In a single seamless movement, he uncorked yet another flask from his bandolier and drank deeply. No! A sharp, almost childlike voice pervaded his mind. I want the vacuole wine tonight. Ugh, no. He wrinkled his nose in mild distaste. Can't stand that, too sweet. I want it. Blue eyes rolled. You can be such a child. That's your fault. Now gimme. Alright, fine. He uncorked a fresh bottle and drank. Truly, the drink that followed was far too fruity for Naruto's tastes. It reminded him of berry water he'd once imbibed back at Shade Academy. It did him no favors here. His tenant, however, all but purred with delight. Yes, she cooed like the child she was at heart, sweet ambrosia. One did not simply weaken a primordial goddess and seal her away without consequences. Had she been fully possessed of her faculties and power, he very much doubted he would have been able to deal with Kagaya at all. Really, with the way things wound up in his world, sealing her up like this had been the only thing he could think to do at the time, cut off from the lion's share of her power, little more than a shadow of her former self. And still she could probably solo anything on Remnant. She had mellowed much over their many years together, but only so long as he kept her plied properly with drink. An annoying buzzing sensation in his ears reminded him of where he was. Right, he had a job to do, for summer. So, here he is. Having finished his introduction, Crow stepped aside, revealing him to prying eyes. This guy's an old pal of mine. He's had a bit of a rough time, so be nice to him. Everyone stared. Naruto blinked blearily at them from where he lay. What, did they want a speech or something? Kagaya hiccuped in his head. Don't suppose I can eat one of them? Souls always pair well with a bit of wine. The blonde uttered a jaw-popping yawn. No eating this lot. You can have your fill at the tribe. Maybe even a maiden or two if we're lucky. Best dad ever. You always did spoil me. He stumbled upright and sketched a tipsy bow. Naruto Uzumaki. He removed his headband and swept one arm to the side. He was feeling whimsical at the moment. Why not make a show of things? Former shinobi, savior of the world, magician. All-around badass and current foster father to Kagaya Bloody Itsuki, at your service. He leaned back, beaming a little. Ha! Didn't stumble over my words once, Kagaya chirped. Mistral vodka, daddy, coming right up. An emerald green flask is plucked from his belt and pressed back to his lips. One of the kids raised their hand. What's a Kagaya? Nope. Crow buled his way to the front before Naruto had a chance to regale them any further. The kids made faces, of course. Because at the end of the day, that's precisely what they were. Kids, 16, 17, or even 18, didn't matter to him. These runts were so green they may as well have been eating grass and pissing it besides. As Naruto drank, he took a moment to take stock of his new charges. Blondie, Schnee, Ginger, quiet one, tall, blonde and scraggly, right? Missing anyone? Oops, forgot little red over there at the edges. He squinted at her. There was something about that one. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. She looked a lot like Summer. When the hell did Summer have a kid? He would have remembered that, surely, considering, well, wow. Rwby pinched her nose beneath the weight of his regard and leaned back. Someone who drinks more than Uncle Crow. I'm actually impressed. Naruto sketched a slurring, stumbling bow. Thank ya. That wasn't a compliment, Buster. A bleary grin answered her. You're definitely your mother's daughter. Yang absolutely hissed. The rest closed ranks around her. Rwby flinched as if he'd slapped her across the face. You knew Mom? Yup, he hiccuped once. Had a hell of a time together. Didn't know she had a kid. Now, a new voice intoned. We are all of us allies here. There's no need to quarrel. A young boy stepped forth from among, banishing those thoughts with the click of a familiar cane. Naruto knew that cane. Just the sight of it threatened to ruin his pleasant haze. It was the eyes that gave him away. They were old orbs, far too old for a boy like him to have. More than that, his posture was all wrong. He held his very self like a man of advanced age, when in truth he was anything but. Can I eat him? Ask me later, he growled, and then the whelp offered him his hand. It's good to see you, old friend. Naruto scowled, feeling dangerously sober for the first time in decades. He hated it. Aimed here for you, Ajban. He pivoted away, flung himself back down onto the couch, and pulled a fresh flask from his belt. I came for Crow. Yes, of course, but we appreciate your help nevertheless. Always with the silver tongue, this one, he'd give the talk no jutsu a run for its money. Naturally, Blondie chose that moment to pipe up again. He gonna be any good in a fight? Make no mistake, Ajban smiled and placed both hands upon the hilt of his cane. He could defeat the 7 of you with both arms bound behind his back. When Naruto quirked a blonde brow, the revived master hastened to clarify. I dare say he proved more than a match for a maiden. John straightened just little. He's really that taut? Doesn't look it. Appearances can be deceiving, young Ark, as you well know. Naruto waved blearily. As the teenagers leaned back. One of their number, the Schnee, protested. But sir, he's a lush. That remark might have driven most men to drink more, but not he. To him, it was a compliment. Everyone underestimated the drunk, always, without fail. It made their surprise all the sweeter. There was something oddly familiar about this one too, but in a distant, more amusing way. Even in his inebriated state it barely took him a moment to place it. He knew that prissy air anywhere. You're a Schnee, ain't ya? I am. Weiss lifted her chin, preening just a little. What of it? Thought so. Naruto's grin grew to legendary proportions. How's Willow? Last I saw her, she was fire under the sheets. Perfect teeth clicked shut with an audible snap. Hell, worth it. Sue, John spoke into the silence. We're going after Raven, then? Crow sighed. Something like that, kiddo. Don't tell Leo. Best he doesn't know. They slipped out that very night. No one tried to stop them. Why would they? Hunters came and went from the city gate all the time. Crow led their merry little band on a brisk march. Truth be told, Naruto didn't pay much mind to it. When the time finally came for a rest, he didn't take it and took first watch instead. No reason not to. He hadn't slept for years. Sleeping burned off the booze. Big no-no, that. No one approached him that night either. Fine by him. He wasn't in the mood to talk. And so he knocked another bottle back, listened to Kagaya's happy murmurs and resigned himself to a long wait. A simple favor for a friend. Corral an ornery maiden, open the vault, then pry a question out of the lamp, then he could go back to drinking his days away. Hoping from place to place without a care in the world. Nothing would come of this. Nothing would change. Nope, nothing at all, not a thing. Silly boy, how very little he knew. Well, the tribe still looks like a piece of shit. Funny how a single sentence can win someone to your side so swiftly. Jan hadn't given much thought to their ally until now. Even at this moment he seemed more a lush than anything else. she didn't want to stand downwind of him, or upwind for that matter, and this was coming from someone who knew Uncle Crow. There wasn't a single moment that he didn't have a drink in his hand, and rarely another when he wasn't drinking said drink. That or talking to someone who wasn't there. She wasn't quite sure what a Kagaya was. But whoever she might be, he seemed to refer to her fondly enough, and hey, at least he recognized this dump for what it was, points for that. So? She planted a fist on her hip, regarding the great wooden gate before them. Now what? Crow uttered a jaw-popping yawn. Now we knock. No way the sentries haven't seen us yet, might as well be polite. Naruto rolled his eyes, polite, right. Crow gave him a hard nudge. Rwby laughed a little. What? The blonde balked at them both. I'm just saying. It's glad to see some things remain the same, even shitty ones. Another nudge urged him forward. Alright, I'll go say hello. Twist my arm. Why don't ya? Crazy bird. He walked right up to the gate and gave it a firm knock. Yang tapped a foot when he did so a second time, to no avail. Last time, these gates had opened for her. This time they remained firmly shut. Seen Mom didn't want to deal with them. Well, too bad, they weren't messing around. If this maiden was in there, they needed her help. No two ways about it. Then again, they wouldn't be doing much of anything if her blasted egg donor kept the freaking gates close. Naruto grinned up at the wooden barricade and knocked again one last time. Housekeeping. Weiss rolled her eyes. He's cracked. That can't possibly work. With a ponderous creak, the gate fell inward and crashed to the ground. An unlucky band of bandits was caught on the other side and found themselves trapped beneath the heavy wooden logs. Dirt and dust sprayed out in every direction, the sheer backlash of which had more than a few shielding their faces. Yang Xiaolong did no such thing. How? Naruto winked, plucked another flask from his coat. Where was he hiding them all? And sauntered into the camp as if he owned the place. Told ya. Crow wrapped one hand around the hilt of his weapon and stalked after him. All right, kids, best behavior. We didn't come here for a fight. A bolt of lightning cracked through the sky and was summarily caught in Naruto's hand. The blonde sighed and, without breaking his stride, clenched his palm around it, beneath those clawed fingers. The thunderbolt broke like so much brittle glass. When a secondary attack wasn't forthcoming, he tossed his head and waded back in. Raven! He sing-songed, we've come to bargain. Much to their surprise, they were met shortly within. In that Naruto and Uncle Crow only made it 5 steps in before they found themselves confronted. A grisly red tear opened on the other side of them to cut them off, forcing both men to stop short lest they walk right into it. And then it happened. She emerged. Rwby stood beside her. Is that? Yang grit her teeth. Yeah, that's her. Raven Brandon stepped forth, her face masked as ever. Yang, so you came back, did you? Blood-red eyes flicked over her shoulder, and with guests, to what do I owe the occasion? Her posture stiffened as she took in their small force. This is a bad time, Crow, I have guests. Oh, that's cute. Crow stepped aside. We have this guy. Say hello, Whiskers. Naruto pushed up beside him with a chipper smile. Hello. Raven choked. Why is that thing here in my camp? Thing, am I? A blonde brow quirked. Raven, I'm hurt. I thought we were friends. With you, maybe. Not that monster inside of you. She drew her blade in a flourish of red steel. Get out. I've stared death in the face over and over again. She stalked down the steps, her face hidden behind her mask, but anger in her voice all the same. And every time I've spat in that face and survived because I'm strong enough to do what others won't. And I will not stand by while you. An uppercut cracked into Raven's chin, launching her back into the tent. Yan whistled. Hot damn, she wanted that. My, a new voice interjected. Isn't this convenient? Yang stiffened. She knew that voice, she'd heard it once before. How could she forget? Beacon, Penny, Pira. She didn't want to move, didn't want to turn, already knowing what who. She wound fine there, yet unable to do anything less. To ignore them now would spit on everything she'd been through, everything she'd seen and suffered. You, me. Cinder touched a finger to her chin with a faux smile. I'm sorry, are we interrupting? Her visible eyes flashed with molten shades of fire, and the world erupted. A wise man once said the drunk mind speaks the sober heart. Naruto believed in that saying wholeheartedly. Truer words have never been spoken. You don't really, truly know someone until you get ridiculously drunk with them. Take Crow for instance. Man was like a brother to him, all but a sibling in blood. He'd seen Branwen at his best and worst, and then some. He didn't trust these kids, and he certainly didn't trust Ashpin. But Crow? He trusted Crow. And if Crow was willing to knock a few heads together with him, well, typical weekend that. Geronimo! Clenched knuckles flicked outward, barreling into his opponent's face with a satisfying crack. The young woman aborted her charge with a painful yowl and stumbled back, clutching at her ruined face. Blood sluiced down between her fingers. Oh dear, that looked painful. Despite himself, Naruto found himself wincing a little. Oops, he hadn't meant to hit her there again. Bit of an accident. Every time. An angry iris regarded him, burning with golden flames. Why is it always my eye? Sorry, he shrugged, but you just make it too easy. Cinder followed at him in a whirlwind of fire, or she would have, if he hadn't flicked a lazy hand sign and spewed a torrent of water in her face. What was once a furious charge turned into an ungraceful tumble as she careened backward. Her back struck the ruined palisade concealing the tribe and crashed through it. Wood cracked and yielded as she hurtled through. For a moment he wondered if that would be enough to put her down. Really, he was holding back here, if only to confirm something. When she'd opened fire on the camp, everyone had scattered. Crow had gone for Raven. Jan went after Mr. Meadowlegs. He hadn't paid much attention to the rest, honestly. 4 against 10? That wasn't brave, it was suicide for Cinder. Oh, and look at that, she was getting up again. Look, lady, he planted one hand in his pocket. I may be the drunk one here, but I'm starting to think you're an idiot. Didn't your parents teach you better than this? A fireball whisked past, easily sidestepped. I am Cinder Fall. Steam rose from her shoulders as she clambered to her feet. And I command your respect. No, you demand my attention like a child. Naruto blinked once, and stifled a yawn behind his palm. But hey, I'll bite. Why? Fire flared between her teeth. Excuse me? I said why? Actually, hold on a second. As she looked on aghast, Naruto uncorked a small bottle of booze, pressed it to his lips, and downed it quickly. Vale whiskey always did pack a punch. Much better. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Now, were we? Oh, right. What could you have possibly done to deserve my respect? She managed to rally. The poor thing, bless her black heart. I orchestrated the fall of Beacon. Another blink followed the last with a frown. So you did. Are you proud of yourself? Countless innocents died by my machinations. Said frown became a scowl, and I slew Ashpin himself with this power. You do realize he can't die, but I still killed him. Still the fall maiden glowered at him, her lone eye alight with equal parts fire and fury. He wasn't impressed. Second verse, same as the first, and I should respect you for that. You should fear me. I have the blessing of Salem herself. So you are working for her, good. He'd wanted to confirm that before he did anything rash. Think I'll pay her a visit after this. Was it wrong that a part of him relished the way Cinder paled? Yes? No, maybe so? She's clearly gotten too big for her britches again. Someone needs to give that girl a good spanking. Maybe not, Kagaya groused. She strikes me as someone who'd enjoy it. Kinky bitch, that one. Probably so. Naruto clapped his palms, startling his prey. Unless you're hiding a keg of ale in that dress of yours. A lone brow rose when she immediately snarled at him. I think it's high time we wrap this up. A distant explosion rocked the world behind him as dark clouds rolled in above. Naruto stole a glance over his shoulder. There's the maiden. Why am I not surprised? In the same instant Cinder's dove at him. Not bad. Striking when his back was turned. She might have made a half-decent shinobi in another life. But not this once. It was the matter of a moment to stop her blade with a single finger, reach around, hook his arm into the cloth concealing her left arm and yank the flesh beneath. Hard. An awful pop filled the stormy afternoon. Naruto found himself starting at a limb of pure darkness. What the? Cinder crashed to her knees with a noise caught somewhere between a scream and a groan. One hand rose to clutch at her ruined shoulder, until her screams peaked and the twisted form of her arm began to bulge. In a matter of moments a new arm tore itself into existence from the ruined stump of her arm. Kagaya groaned. I think I'm going to be sick. Grim arm. Neat. Naruto frowned as his trophy began to dissolve in his grasp. It ain't gonna save ya, of course. But hey, look at that. You grew it back. That's pretty metal. Cinder glared up at him, breath hitching in agony. Naruto flung the crumbling arm away. Too much? Funny thing about drinking, that sometimes it numbs you, other times it makes you angry, sad, on occasion, downright silly. When you least expect it, they say a drunk is also an honest man, for a drunkard can tell no lies. You see, alcohol has a way of opening every door in your mind, of loosening your tongue and cutting away all forms of restraint. You've never been big on that aspect, have you? Nope. Naruto laughed as Kagaya's inquiry out as he dodged another burning blade. Hey, look at that. Another miss. It swept harmlessly past, carving a fiery furrow where his face had been not a moment before. A pillar of fire chased it, one he casually stifled with a raised hand. Cinder came barreling through it, hacking at his head with all the subtlety of a falling axe. Fall. Now that he thought about it, she'd probably pick that last name herself. Almost sad. Is this really the best you can do? He squinted at her. And why are there 3 of you? Drunk fool! She kicked out at him with a long leg, only for him to trip her up and send her sprawling anew. Her blades flew into the air. He snatched one up and crushed it in his fist. A finger jabbed in her startled face. I'll have you know I'm only tipsy. Really, all this exercise was beginning to burn off his buzz. He was beginning to feel dangerously sober. That wouldn't do. No! Kagaya whined and threw a fit in the back of his head like a petulant child. Don't like that. Don't want it. I know. He reached around himself, fumbling for a flask. I'm working on it. Give me a second. He pulled a larger bottle from his pack, pried the cork free and drank again. Ah. Much better. Menagerie made some fine stock. Blasted fool. Cinder dove at him, while he was distracted. Hold still and die already. Nah, no fun that way. You can't keep this up forever. She cut low and he blocked high, her forehead smashed against his. You're human. Just like me. I'm just a human. Another bottle came and went, downed in an instant. You're slow on the uptake, Cinder. What you're facing isn't a human. I haven't been for a while now. Naruto hiccuped and swayed backward, spine binding at an angle that would have made Tyrion himself green with envy. From that angle he lashed out with a heel and kicked Cinder across the face. The startled maiden took the blow on her chin and shot into the sky. His shadow fell over her in the air. Too late, she felt a fist touch her back. Her good eye widened. Oh, you absolute BA. Primary Lotus. She hit the ground at Mach 1, crashing into an unprepared raven. Both went sprawling. A haggard-looking crow climbed to his feet. Thanks for the save. Don't stop me now. I'm having a good time. The 2 maidens were only just climbing to her feet when Naruto reached down, grabbed them by the faces, and slammed them into the ground. Then he took off running, dragging them with him. And if he was laughing all the while? Well, no one dared to question him. Not a single person intervened. Nope, nobody at all. Not a single soul. Salem shivered. Just a bit, just a little. Why do I feel I'm in danger all of a sudden? This wasn't happening. This could not be happening. She had strength now. She had power. So why? A frustrated shriek tore its way out of Cinder's throat as she crawled to her feet. Even now her head ached abominably, face red and smarting where she'd been dragged across the ground. Not like this. She was not meant to lose here. Fate was on her side. Destiny demanded her victory. So why then? Why? Why can't I hit you? A light laugh swelled through the air, boiling her blood as she failed anew. Because you're green. Naruto batted her blades aside with another open palm. Also, 'cause I don't want you to. This went beyond mere humiliation. He was toying with her, playing with her, as though she were some child flailing a stick at him. She swiped at him again, to no avail. His body swayed aside at the last second, turning a decapitating stroke into harmless flailing. Flame flew from her fingers and he vanished in a plume of smoke. Oh, those look sharp. He tittered in her ear. Little girls shouldn't play with knives. Another swipe, another miss. Cinder pivoted and cut out at his head, weaving a whirlwind of molten death. All for naught. He actively parried now, shattering her blades with each block and forcing her to conjure still more. Glass shattered, fire flared as they raged back and forth across the camp. Where was what's? Emerald? Mercury? A flash of gray shot past, and she soon had her answer. No, don't you dare run away. Yan Xiaolong stalked past them, hair alight, murder in her eyes. Come here, metal legs. I'll shove them up your ass. Should she do something about that, Ak? Pain cracked across her face as someone slapped her upside the head. Now, a finger wagged. Don't go cheating on me. I'm the only blonde you need to worry about. Is this a game to you? This is my life. I have a destiny. Hardly. His hand rose, fingers splayed. If this were a game I'd be having fun, which I'm not, and I've never been much of one to believe in destiny. I'll kill you! South close. Yet so far. Come on, why so serious? Naruto granted her a bleary smile as her blades broke on his wrists once more. You should loosen up a little. Raven came flying in from the right, only to be summarily caught by her face. Smell the roses, you know? Without missing a beat he whirled and rammed the spring maiden face first into the ground. Who knows? There was an awful crack as her skull struck the dirt, and there she lay. You might actually look better if you smile. His brow furrowed, or lose the scars. Something snapped in the back of Cinder's mind. Both hands snapped forward, fire sparked. Naruto crashed backward with a laugh as a column of flame ripped him from his feet. She brought another one down on his head. Lightning raged, frost flared. An elemental maelstrom scoured the ground where he lay, baking the ground to clay. There. Victory was hers. Eye burning, chest heaving, she lowered her arms. There. A childish snarl tore itself from her as the smoke faded. How did you like that? All that snark isn't going to save you when I take you apart. And don't think I don't appreciate the effort. No, that wasn't possible. By a wide margin, you're packing more of a wallop than most. The drunken god climbed to his feet with a roguish grin, smiling as the ruin of his face restored itself. However, his head tilted just so, and that small smile became a wicked grin. You will never, ever defeat me with that power. Something about the way he said those words resonated her. What? Should I use smaller words? He laughed. You can't hit me. Then what do you call the last minute? His eyes narrowed. Pity. She lunged. Die. Thruck. A knee slammed into her torso, driving the air from her lungs. She doubled over for but a moment before a callous backhand sent her flying away, twirling end over end into air. She was still spinning end over end when a fist caught her by the ankle and slammed her into the mud. Flames flared beneath her feet, and she burst back into the sky, desperate to put some distance between them. She had to move. Her foe made no effort to pursue. There was no need. You're boring me, you know. His words cut through her dread like a knife. This isn't fun anymore. I've seen more action in a day than you've seen in your entire life. Placid blue eyes gazed up at her from the ground. Hell, at your age I took down a criminal organization feared across the world. Much to her chagrin, he began to count down from his fingers instead. Several lunatics who wanted to rule said world, fought in a war to end all wars, and seal the rabbit goddess, a pause, who is now currently sloshing around inside me, laughing her ass off at you, amateur. His head turned and spat upon the ground. You think a bit of magic makes you strong? You're a little girl flailing about with power you don't even understand. The flames guttered out of Cinder's eyes. No, she wasn't. So why don't you come down here? Naruto cooed. Stop flailing like a child, and quit wasting everyone's time. Shut up. In a fit of pique, Cinder unleashed all her power. Her arms shot up, the heavens answered her call. A bolt of light split the sky and arced down at him with a vengeance. It vanished into his marked palm, sucked from the sky itself. No! Another came and went, meeting a similar fight, a third, fourth, 5 now. Each left her weaker than the last, each drained her reserves. Still she didn't relent. She dare not relent, because if she did, if she slipped for even a moment, sapphire eyes filled her vision. Cinder's recoiled, too late. Naruto's firm hand closed around her face. She swiped at him weakly. He wrenched her wrist up and to the side, then slammed her into the dirt once more. She kicked up at him with a shriek, but her fist skittered off his face. Something was wrong. She felt so slow, weak, heavy. She couldn't muster her strength. Where had her power gone? Such a brat. Those bleary blue orbs narrowed. You're no better than Raven. Hey, that gives me an idea. Cinder's visible eye widened. I'll never submit to you. He smiled. It was not a nice smile. I believe ya. His hand tightened around her face. Cinder's world went black. Ashbin had seen it all. He'd witnessed gods and monsters, seen might and magic, spells that shook the earth, semblances that defied logic. He had lived countless lives and learned much through them all. Throughout each, he had come to see much, and know even more. Perhaps he had seen all there was to see, know all there was to know. It seemed the universe lived to defy him. Here are your maidens. Naruto dropped a bundle of cloth at his feet. Have fun. Ashbin recoiled. And Oscar's body with him. What have you done? What was needed? Cinderfall looked up at him. At least, he could only assume this was Cinderfall. That had to be Raven Branwen beside her. The dark hair and red eyes were a dead giveaway. And yet, Like little girls playing dress up in their mother's clothes. They wore their garments like tents. It didn't make any sense, yet the sight before him said otherwise. He blinked thrice. Mom? Yang took one look at them and both hands flew to her face. What happened to you? Mercury hissed out a breath through his bruised face. What the hell is this? Emerald blinked rapidly, scrubbed at her eyes. Cinder? Is that you? Arthur groaned where he lay, trapped under Nora's boot. You must be joking. Ashbin was beginning to wonder the same himself. One of the girls sniffled. He could never tell who, large eyes swelling with unshed tears. That got the other going. Everyone shrank back as one. No one wanted to face a crying child, and these two couldn't be more than 7 at a stretch. All around them the battle ground to a halt. Who are you people? Cinder glanced about fretfully with both eyes, voice high and reedy with fear. Where am I? What is this place? My head hurts. Raven's voice warbled in thinly veiled terror. Where's my mom? I want to go home. What the actual hell? Crows swore. Aw, Whiskers! What did you do to them? Naruto yawned, erased their memories and used the forbidden jutsu. Why? Why is nothing ever simple with you? What, would you rather I killed them? Ashbin looked left. Ashbin looked right. Ashbin sighed. What have we unleashed?